You are listening to Three Kitchens Podcast, a member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. We release a new episode every Tuesday. Come join us for a new recipe and a good story.
This episode is brought to you by Park Power, your friendly local utilities provider in Alberta, offering internet, electricity, and natural gas with low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. In Alberta, you get to choose where to buy your internet, electricity, and natural gas. If you switch providers, nothing changes about the delivery of these utilities to your home or business. If you have an existing contract, you're going to want to find out the terms before leaving. But if you don't, it's even easier to sign up for Park Power. You, as a consumer, have the choice of who to pay your bills to, so why not choose your friendly local utilities provider? Learn more at parkpower.ca.
Hello and welcome to today's episode of Three Kitchens Podcast. Joining Heather and I today is our guest Charlotte Wasylik, and she is from Chatsworth Farm in Alberta. And so we got a chance to talk to her about the cattle industry, what it's like to be a family farm, and she's also a big fan of cooking and baking, and she taught us some really key information about how to cook better with beef.
Yeah, I was really quite impressed with all the knowledge she has about not just the industry, but farming and animal husbandry and butchering the animals and processing and marketing and like she's also a photographer. So if you go on their Chatsworth Farm Instagram account, they have these beautiful pictures of the farm and the animals, and that's Charlotte. Just quite impressive. She's a really impressive person and
so passionate about what she does and sharing what they know and what they've learned over time. And
I didn't actually realize that the majority of the beef industry in Alberta is small family farms. When we got talking about cooking, she told us a bit about roasts. So
yes, there's oven roasts and pot roasts were the two that she had described to us, and how to do pot roast properly.
Which I think we had both agreed we had never really successfully made a pot roast that we enjoyed.
We needed to earn our pot roasting badge. That's right. So I took all of the stuff that she talked to us about and put it into practice. And I had a cross rib roast, but she said you could also use a chuck roast or a blade roast. And I did a classic braise on it. Sear the outside of this roast on high heat. And then I had some onion, garlic, tomato, and fresh herbs and chicken broth, and put that all into a cast iron pan and then sealed it up with tin foil, and I put it in my oven and just let it roast all day. I think I did this around noon, and by the time I took the meat out, it was like 5:36.
And how low was that temperature?
So I started it out initially at 400, and then when I put it in, it was 270 that I turned it down to.
Okay.
But I took that tin foil off, and it had just like, it sagged with fall apart pleasure. There were bones in it that just slipped out. The meat, like you pressed it and it just like came off. I won my pot roast badge that day.
Sounds like you did.
I can cook a pot roast, and I know what kind of roast to cook for it. Invaluable information.
So thank you, Charlotte, for educating us. She also told us when we asked her like what's her favorite cut, and she requested beef tongue tacos, and we were both like, really? Like, I don't know why we weren't expecting her to say tongue was her favorite cut. That was quite interesting. And we were both like, ooh, how do you cook it? Like, we're totally just like leaning in, interested. So listen up, everybody. That's coming too, where she describes how you cook the tongue that you shouldn't disregard just because it sounds a little scary or intimidating to cook.
I really liked her focus on whole animal eating. I'm going to keep you guys in the loop and up to date on what's happening with Chatsworth Farm, because we like to order our quarter cows, Heather and I. They're whole animals, dry age before it goes into further butchering. And so I am I'll keep you up to date, and I'm getting that tongue. I'm making those tacos.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear how that goes.
And check out the roast recipe that I put on the website. I tried my best to describe what I did. Hopefully, I got all the words out right.
Well, and you know that the braising technique is a good one because it comes from Samin Nosrat's salt, fat, acid, heat. And also, speaking of the other type of roast, stay tuned to Three Kitchens podcast. In an upcoming episode, I did a roast on a rotisserie on my barbecue. First time I'd ever dug up the rotisserie and gave it a try.
Yeah.
And that turned out really fantastic. And so we've got kind of both examples of roast cuts and what you do with them. So stay tuned for that one in an upcoming episode. We'll give you a heads up.
Yeah. And if you're local, check out Chatsworth Farm.
Yep. Order some beef. They deliver to Edmonton and they're delivering to Calgary here and there. And or just contact them and see. Maybe they're coming to your neighborhood too.
So welcome, Charlotte. Will you please tell our listeners a bit about yourself and your family's farm?
Hello, I'm really excited to be here. Podcasts and food are two of my absolute favorite things, so it's really exciting to be chatting about them as a whole.
Oh, yay!
Nice. I listen to podcasts while I am doing chores and while I am even cooking, so it blends together incredibly well.
Nice.
Our farm, Chatsworth Farm, is located near Vermilion in the county of Vermilion River, which is 2.5 hours east of Edmonton. And we're a mixed farm, and it's made up of my two brothers. So there are 3 of us children. We're all grown adults, and my parents. So we all work together throughout the year doing various things on the farm when everyone is able to. So for our partners, that's outside of their daily jobs and their post-secondary education. And our farm was established in 1994 by my parents, and it started out as a mixed farm. And a mixed farm is just a farm that has more than one type of thing. And by thing, I mean either livestock or crops. And for our farm, we have predominantly beef cattle, and that's what my dad started out with. We have poultry, and those are ducks, geese, chickens, and turkeys. We have a smaller flock of sheep that we are growing. Our newest addition, we have 5 pigs that we are raising just for our family and for some friends. We want to see how they do, how we like raising pigs, and what the final product looks like. And we have 2 horses, and then we have a lovely group of barn cats, and we have our dogs. So that completes all of the animals that we have on our farm. And then in addition to that, we also grow crops. So last year we had wheat and oats. We also grew corn for silage, and we have alfalfa. And depending on the year, we'll also grow barley, we'll grow flax, peas, canola. It just depends where we are in our rotation and what we expect that the year will bring in terms of weather and what we're needing to add to our grain bins. So that's a general overview of our farm and what's on it.
Wow, that's a really big, I'm imagining you must have a very large area that you occupy for all of your crops and animals.
All of our land isn't connected. Some of our pasture that we own is 30 minutes to the south of us, 30 minutes to the west of us. And then we rent throughout the year too, whether it's from neighbors or organizations like Ducks Unlimited, who have a pasture program for farmers. This past summer, we took the majority of our cows and calves up to Meadow Lake in Saskatchewan, so about 4 hours away, because there was good grass up there following 2020, which was a drought year. So we wanted to give our pastures a nice break so that they could regenerate and be healthy for years to come. And there wasn't a lot of grass around our area, so we had to branch out a little bit further.
Wow. It's a lot to manage and consider. And I was looking on your website at the kind of biography and history of your farm. And so your dad started the farm, and he didn't grow up on a farm, right? Like his parents were not farmers.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting to me that he was like, I think I'm going to farm. I think his grandparents were farmers. Is that right?
They were on both sides, and he had quite a few uncles who were farmers. So he spent a lot of his time at his grandparents and at his uncles during his youth. And he was always around animals, and it was something that he wanted to continue with.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So are you able to produce most of the grain that you need then through your crops for your animals?
We do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes we do need to buy a little bit of wheat. We'll go to one of our neighbors who will have some extra, and we'll purchase it from them. And then throughout the winter is when we're feeding the animals the most intensively, because there's not a lot of grass out there. The sheep and the horses, they just get hay. And then for the cattle, they get a bit of a different mix. So they get that nice hay. They also get some straw, those nice straw bales that everyone's familiar with. We mix that in a little bit, and we also add silage to the cattle's feed. And so silage, so it's fermented feed. It's essentially like sauerkraut for cattle. And then their diet will change a little bit depending on that group of animals. So any of our pregnant females, and then any of our females who are lactating, they'll get more of that really good quality hay.
Right.
So then you're on your farm, you are raising livestock from birth. I know on some farms they'll bring in calves,
Yes.
raise them until they're ready to go to market, right? But are you on your farm, you're managing the entire life cycle?
We do the entire life cycle for the cattle, for the sheep, for the poultry. It gives us a lot of pride, and it's just something that seeing that entire life cycle for us is important.
You know exactly what's gone into it.
Exactly. And for the turkeys, especially, these are the ones that we have are heritage breeds, so they take a little bit longer to raise than the commercial varieties. We like to be able to do that entire process throughout the animals on the farm.
That seems important, especially since when you're raising animals in sort of higher numbers like that, you want to keep that diversity up so that you don't get one cold or sickness that kind of squashes your flock.
Exactly. And it just adds to the sustainability of the farm.
That's very cool.
I love this kind of story that you're a family farm and that everybody's pitching in. And how would you describe your experience of growing up on the family farm? And
well, from probably day one, my brothers and I, we were always, so mom could set us in the playpen while she was doing chores, and we would just hang out in there, and we were immersed in everything. And then once we got a little bit older and we were able to walk around, my dad built us little pails. I don't know if you know of the ketchup cans that you could get in the store, those big cans of ketchup. Obviously, we went through a lot of ketchup, but we would use those, and he put little handles on them, so they were the perfect size for children to carry around. And then our grandfather made little pitchforks for us, so we were able to help out wherever we could. And there was nothing that was kept away from us or shielded from us, because on a farm you experience a lot of things. Some of them are really happy, some of them are really sad, and we've got to be part of it all. Whenever we're calving, we would be assistants, and we would help Dad with that. And often, if we weren't quite tall enough to reach into the cow, he would lift us up, and we would have our gloves on, and we'd reach in and we could feel the calves' feet and put the chains on. So that was something that we probably were doing from, I don't know, probably 6 years old, at least to the point where we were capable of manipulating the chains around the calves' legs to pull them out. And growing up, my brothers and I, we were all in 4-H youth organization. That was an excellent experience for us, and it really helped to cement our love for agriculture outside of farming necessarily. My brother has really taken in livestock showing. He goes to a lot of cattle shows. It was never forced upon us. We weren't made to stay on the farm if we didn't want to, but that was something that we all really enjoyed, and we're all farmers. It's something that we really love and want to be part of the rest of our lives.
That's very cool. You take some beautiful, beautiful pictures,
Thank you.
not just of animals and farms, but people too. So everybody, you're going to want to check out Charlotte. And if you're anywhere near here, maybe you want to hire her for your wedding or something, because she's really great. Just a nice extra plug. Okay, I saw the pictures of there was a bull from the show, and it's just, if you've not been around these types of animals, it's massive. And it really is a
Yes.
beautiful, I don't know if people always think of livestock in terms of their beauty, but really it's a beautiful, huge, beautiful animal. I was really impressed with that.
Yes, I am an event professional as my profession. And so I've had the opportunity to work with large agricultural shows, and it's a great experience, and it's really fun to be able to see people who've never experienced a livestock show before and give them that opportunity, because their minds are blown. It's an amazing experience for them.
It's like when we take the kids to the stampede grounds, to the livestock barns, like our little city kids are just like, whoa, look at that. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's a farmer's favorite thing to do too, go look at other people's animals. So when I've been to Stampede, the first thing I do is go over to the barns, because it's my favorite.
It's so fun to be able to see the animals up close. I know my kids really enjoy that too.
How does a family farm, which, I mean, it sounds sizable, but how does this kind of fit into the larger industry? How do you get what you're producing to people's dinner?
For us as a beef farm, for the most part, and I'll focus on that one, most of the beef cattle that are raised in Canada, and specifically in Alberta, do come off family farms. So they'll come off a farm that's very similar to ours. What will happen is the calves will be born on that particular farm, just like ours, usually at the time of weaning. So they'll get sold and shipped off to a feedlot. And we do that with our calves, around 230 females that we calve out every spring. And so hopefully we'll end up with around 230 babies. We'll keep around 50 of the females, and those will go back into our herd. So they will become mothers again. So we're still left with around 180 or so. And even that number, that's just too many that we as a family farm are able to sell directly to customers. We'd love to, but it's just not possible between our local butchers and our freezer space. That's typically what we butcher in a year, and what we sell in a year is 12 animals. So the rest of those animals are sold, and that's also how we keep our farm profitable and how we're able to keep going. And with our cattle, we're a verified beef producer. So our animals are also sold at a slightly different market than some other animals might be. For a while, we were just selling a couple of animals direct to consumers, but in the past couple of years, we have been able to increase. And so that's really exciting. It shows us that people are excited and thinking about where their food comes from. One of the things that can also be a bit of a challenge for some farmers, if they are planning to sell farm to table, is just their access to butchers or abattoirs. In some areas, the abattoir, which is where they do the killing and the processing, that is one facility, and then the butcher is another facility. For us, we're very fortunate. Ours are one and the same. So our animals go there, they are processed, and then they dry age, and they are cut and wrapped in the same spot. And all we have to do is go to one place and pick it up. And they're very close and very convenient, so it makes it very easy on the animals. There's very little stress involved. We usually butcher between the ages of 18 and 30 months. It depends on the animal. It depends on when they're finished. And I know finished isn't a really descriptive term, but that is the term that's used. A finished animal just looks like they are plump. They just look finished.
I'm going to start using that term. I'm just finished.
That's like how I feel after a good meal.
Yeah, I'm finished.
Exactly. And each animal, just like every person, is different. And so they grow at different rates. They're born and raised on the farm. They spend their first summer with their mother out on pasture. They come back in the fall. And at that point, their mothers have already started to wean their babies, to start to put their energy into the calf that they are currently growing inside them again that they will be having in the
okay.
spring. Wild animals are usually have a baby every year, so the livestock do as well. And we will decide which ones we want to keep for our beef program, and then there'll be the other ones that are sold as that group to the feedlot. Our butchers book up very quickly, so it does take some planning. We usually just book the dates and then we pick the animal to fit those dates. Usually the day before, we'll have an animal in mind.
The one who's finished. Which one of you is finished? Okay, that's you. You're looking good. You're looking good.
Then with our butcher, we send in our cutting list, and it depends on the seasons. For example, short ribs are a really popular cut in the winter, but they're not super popular in the summer. We utilize everything. We have our butchers cut as much as possible. And then our beef dry ages, so the entire carcass dry ages for 15 to 21 days, depending on the butcher. And once it's ready to go, we pick it up from our butcher and we bring it home and we sell it as individual cuts. Or there are people who are wanting to buy beef in bulk, so they want to be able to have a huge selection of cuts in their freezers. Or you can even do a half or a quarter. So it depends on what you have space for, what you're wanting to commit to, because it's a lot of meat.
A whole beef would be a lot.
Wow.
We get a quarter every year, and that's a lot, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What does the aging do?
Yeah, so it helps to break down any of those connective tissues, and so it makes it much softer, and the flavor of the meat gets concentrated. So any of the meat that you would find typically at a grocery store that has not been dry aged, that time is worth something, and so it adds to a delicious cut.
So that's a great thing to ask if you're either buying direct or you're going to, say, the farmer's market and there's a farm and you want to ask some questions about how it's been raised. Maybe asking about aging is a good question to ask.
But if you're doing pork or lamb, they aren't dry aged. So beef and bison will be the two that will be. So if you're looking for dry aged lamb, people might give you some funky stares.
Okay.
Okay, this is so good to know. We're learning so much.
I'm going to be much more educated next time I pull up to the
or stop at the
market.
Butcher. Sometimes, we go directly to a butcher in the city. Sometimes they have a nicer cut than at the grocery store, right?
And a lot of those butchers will dry age as well. So
Excellent. Well, we will be back in just a second to talk more about cooking these different cuts of meat. This episode of Three Kitchens Podcast is brought to you by the Well Endowed Podcast. The Edmonton Community Foundation helps people create endowment funds. The podcast tells the stories of how these endowments intersect with the community. The Well Endowed Podcast explores the impact of passionate people who are working to make Edmonton a strong, vibrant city to live in. Subscribe at thewellendowedpodcast.com. Welcome back. We're here to talk about cooking. So it sounds like you enjoy cooking.
yes.
I'm very curious about how many different types of meat, like the different cut lists, and can you tell us more about how do you choose how to butcher your animals? Is there an optimal way to do it so that you get a diversity or variety of cuts? Can you kind of lead us through that? Because that's something that I know, like Heather spoke before, that she gets a quarter cow. We've also gone in with family to do a quarter cow. And when they come to us and say, what do you want your cut list to be? I have no idea. I'm always like, I don't know.
I don't even get an option. I just get what's sent.
Yeah. So how can you educate us if we are going to go to a farmer directly? How do we know what should we be getting?
Cut lists can be quite daunting, and I think the first time that I had to do a cut list for taking one of the animals in at the very beginning, I found it daunting too. But there are still quite a few cuts out there that we haven't explored yet. And one of the crazy things about meat, particularly beef, is that there are so many different names for different cuts that people use. And so depending on where you are, they might be called something different, or they're a cut that you're just unfamiliar with completely. It can be a little bit confusing. We have a very handy dandy chart on our website that outlines where different cuts come from on the carcass so that you can visually picture that. People have a really great understanding that those animals have 2 ears, 1 tail, 4 legs.
Okay.
But that understanding just sort of evaporates once people see those animals as cuts. So they don't necessarily remember that there's only 1 oxtail on an animal. So that's one cut that we are regularly sold out of, because a steer out on a pasture has 1 tail. It doesn't translate to when it's all cut and wrapped.
Well, we live in a society too where we're so used to, it's like on demand. If we wanted to buy 7 oxtails, we expect we can just go and order 7 or pick up 7 at the store. It's like you don't think about.
No.
Exactly.
And because of the diversity in names too, it's like, is an oxtail actually a tail? Like, it's not clear to you when you're in the grocery store.
Yes.
Yeah. And for us, we think it's very important to respect the animal as a whole. So we like to make sure that every part of the animal, or as much as possible, is utilized before we go ahead and butcher another animal. One cut is really no better than the other in terms of
value, right?
Exactly.
And it makes a lot of sense to cook with the whole animal. Is there a cut of beef that you like the best?
That's a really hard question because they're all so wonderful. But I will say, and I mentioned it already, beef tongue is actually one of my favorites.
Really?
It's a delicious one. It was my birthday meal. It's a fantastic cut, and if you're not afraid to try it, you will be wonderfully rewarded.
And how do you prepare it?
Yeah.
It's about 9 to 10 inches long or so.
Okay.
About 2.5 to 3 pounds, depending on the animal.
Because it goes a lot further back in the throat than you see.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah, it's big.
Yeah, you put that entire tongue into a pot and you add some aromatics, some water and some stock, and you let that simmer for about 4 to 6 hours. And then once it's tender, you peel off the outer membrane.
Okay.
And then you chop it up into smaller pieces. So kind of you're essentially shredding it for a taco consistency. And once you're ready to serve it, you just take that meat and you heat up a pan with some beef fat or just some regular old oil. And you just fry that so it gets a lovely crispy texture on the outside. And then you just add it to your tacos with whatever toppings you'd like. So it takes a little bit longer in terms of simmering, but it's kind of a set it and forget it. And it is really lovely. It's delicious. Another recipe that I have been working on, and I haven't quite found the perfect recipe yet. I found another one that I'm going to try, but ossobuco, I love it. I started making it because that's another cut that is incredibly abundant on an animal that not a lot of people like to use. The shanks, so that's the part of the leg of the animal as it tapers down, essentially our thigh. And the shanks are bigger at the top, get a little bit smaller as they go down that leg. They are something that needs to be cooked low and slow, and so ossobuco is one of my favorites, and it's very old European style cooking where shanks would be used.
Is it generally a bone-in meat then?
It is, and so ossobuco translation means hollow bone. So you do have that, and I'm hoping I'm getting that correct. Okay. So there's that hollow bone in the middle, and then there's the meat around it.
Oh, okay. Now I'm picturing it.
So,
now I can see it.
Yeah.
Another recipe from Serious Eats. I'm not paid by Serious Eats, but we really enjoy their
But you
recipes.
should be.
We should. I know. We really enjoy what they do. They have a great selection. They had a short rib braised French onion soup.
Oh.
So we didn't have any short ribs. So she used the beef shanks instead because they're very similar type of cut. And it was just so good.
Trying to do something different, right? That changes it up a little bit. Yes. Is there a general rule for the method you use for cooking beef, depending on where it comes on the animal? That's something I know I struggle with, is my freezer when we get this cut list, because first of all, I have done a terrible job educating myself, so I don't know what I'm getting. So the meat always comes and I'm always like, so I'm not really sure what to do with this type of roast. so far, if
Yeah.
you ask my family, I failed every roast that we've tried to make because it just hasn't been, it's just not quite that good.
I'll go back to the Canada Beef website again. And
Right,
so they
okay.
have, they're the two different kinds of roasts. You have your oven roasts, and
Okay.
those are going to be your more tender roasts. So the roasts that don't have as much muscle. And then you
Okay.
have your pot roasts. And so your pot roasts are the ones that need a little bit more of the low and slow cooking. And so those are going to be any of your blade roasts, which blade and chuck roasts are also the same things. So again, with the names. Also, if you have a cross rib roast, that's also another one that needs low and slow. So that's another pot roast. Or if you have any cut that you're wanting to roast up that is from the brisket area. So that starts from sort of the chin of the beef animal to where it connects in between the front two legs. So that's where your brisket is.
Okay.
And then for any of your oven roasts, so those roasts are your more tender ones. So your prime rib, your sirloin, any of your round roasts.
Okay.
So those are any of the ones that are your most tender ones. Hoping to work on a few more of these tips that we can put on our own website. But right now we do have links to Canada Beef because we want people to, if they buy our meat, we want them to enjoy it and find the best way of cooking possible. So, so it's more about the actual cut itself than where it's particularly located on the animal to a point.
Educated.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it sounds like different cuts are, you make a compromise because if you cut it a certain way, then you're not going to get.
Like you can't have both cuts of ribs. You pick the one. You can't have the Korean style and what was that was it short ribs was the other direction?
You can in a way, but there is you'll get fewer of them. So when a beef animal goes into our butcher, so they cut it down the middle lengthwise. And so you'll have half A and half B. And so on half A, you could get all of those Korean cut ribs. And on half B, you could get your just regular short ribs. But of course, you're going to have fewer pounds total if you divide it between the two rather than getting it all together. If you wanted strip loins and you wanted T-bone steaks and you wanted the max of both, that's not possible because the strip loin is that smaller piece on the side of the T-bone steak.
Right.
Okay, yeah. So many things to be aware of. I love this. Love it.
If I wanted to take a roast and turn it into stew meat, what is my best roast to pick to do that?
Especially with stew, you're going to cook it a little bit low and slow. So really any of them are a good one to use. So I would choose though a roast that is in that pot roast category. So I would pick your chuck roast or your cross rib roast.
Okay, so should we switch gears just a little bit? We want to know what's coming up at Chatsworth Farm. Where can people find you and your products this year?
Well, the first thing coming up is calving season, and we've kind of already started. We had 2 babies born yesterday. Wow. And what I'm hoping to do this year is actually do a calving tour and give people the opportunity to come out and see the farm during calving season and maybe even see some calves being born. It's a wonderful experience.
So cool.
We have, of course, our deliveries that we make to Edmonton every month. We deliver to the city and we have 2 parking lot pickups and we deliver to Calgary every other month. Calgary's a little bit further. We're about 4 hours from Calgary. So that's
a big day.
It's a big day and it's a lot of driving. So we will be coming to Calgary, I think in February and then again in April. So if there are things that people would like who are from Calgary, just let us know because we have a connection. I am working already on the details for Alberta Open Farm Days, which is coming up in August. So if anyone is looking to visit their local farm, we highly recommend it. This past year, we hosted a barbecue for the first time and we served up our own hot dogs. So that was a new thing that we had made.
Oh, wow.
So we got the K&K Butcher Shop in Edmonton make our hot dogs for us. They only have our beef in them and our beef fat. And those are the only other than the spices, that's
Yeah.
all they have in them. And so that was a proud moment, and they taste fantastic. So
I
we're
bet.
looking forward to making more hot dogs this year. And so
That is so cool.
they were so fun. We were in awe. So we enjoyed eating hot dogs, and people can always see what we're doing on our Instagram. We try and highlight as much as possible whenever and wherever we can. And it's really fun to share in people's love of farming and agriculture. So it's a great way to connect.
There was some really great information. Everybody should go and have a look, because over the winter, you've been doing posts about especially when it was super cold before Christmas. I think a lot of us maybe wouldn't know. And so I found it really interesting. You had some really great information. Everybody will learn something from it. It's really good stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's great that you're producing a product in a sustainable and an ethical way, because you want to respect the animal. And I think, sometimes maybe people don't understand how much farmers do really love their animals.
Yes. With the animal that we just took into our butchers recently, I shared with everybody on Instagram. I said her name was Kiss. She was a bottle baby. She's going to the butcher today. And so any of the meat that you will be enjoying in the next couple of months, it will be from Kiss. And for some, that might be really difficult, but for others, I think it really brings a realism that this was an animal who is living and breathing, and we need to respect all of the cuts that she gives us and try not to waste it, because we don't want to have her life be in vain. And just understand that her tongue is just as important as those strip loin steaks. So I think that really helps to cement it all together.
Absolutely. I'm going to dig through that freezer today. I'm going to find one of the roasts that I've got that I'm like, and I'm going to make it happen.
I love that. And I have this feeling like the next thing I'm going to hear from Erin is, so for the podcast, I think I'm going to make tongue. I can see it coming.
Heather, you read my mind. I am so making this exact, as soon as you said the tongue tacos.
I know you. And I'm curious
because
because I ate tongue as a child, but I don't think my mom cooked it that way, because I thought it was more, I have this memory of it being tough. And I don't know if it was the way she cooked it, or it's just something in my mental space that I had probably resisted it. But anyway, doesn't matter. I know you're gonna do it well. I have faith in you. You've got more
You'll be able to do
knowledge now. Maybe next month when Charlotte's got a shipment coming to Calgary, you can put in your order.
I think I'm going to be making some plans here.
Nice.
Let's rapid fire this. All right. If you could cook with anyone, dead or alive, real or fictional, who would it be, and what would you want to make?
I think I'd want to cook with Julia Child, because I really admire her. I think she's just such a larger than life character, and she would just be so much fun to learn from. And probably because it's very fitting and it's just very Julia, boeuf bourguignon. I would make that with her.
I like that answer. Can I come and eat with you guys?
Yes.
I'll be at the table to dine.
Of course you can, since it's all fictional.
Okay, peanut butter and
apples. That's what I was going to have for lunch today.
Oh.
Crunchy peanut butter.
I think you're the first person to say that. Yeah, it has to be crunchy. Absolutely.
Yes, I've learned.
Sorry, I have to weigh in.
I've learned. Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite kitchen appliance?
My KitchenAid. I love to bake, so I use my KitchenAid very regularly.
Yeah, we both love our KitchenAids for sure. Well, thank you so much for enduring some of the technical difficulties and all of my questions about beef cuts, because I think that's something everybody can use, and it's been great having you on our podcast today. And
thank you.
Everybody go check out Chatsworth Farm, their Instagram. If you're nearby or in Calgary, you can order your tongue. And anything else that you're interested in, go check them out.
Okay, thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you so much. It was lovely chatting with you both.
And now for the fine print. Join us over on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest, and on our website at threekitchenspodcast.com. And remember, when you like, follow, subscribe, and review, it helps more people find us. Thank you so much for listening. I have a cousin who lives in Vermilion, and Charlotte actually knows her.
Small town Alberta. We're just one big small town.